After hearing from the doctors that I had at most 3 days left to live, my husband suddenly squeezed my hand. A smile crept across his face as he leaned in and whispered, "Finally. I've been waiting on this for so long. The house, the money, everything you got is going to be mine real soon." When he walked out of the private hospital suite, I just stared at the closed door for a long, long moment. Then I turned my head and called out to the housekeeping woman working quietly in the hallway. "If you do exactly what I ask," I said, my voice trembling but firm, "you'll walk away with enough to forget about scrubbing floors forever. My name is Vandra St. James, and I never did like hospitals. Even back when I was younger, the sharp smell of bleach made my throat scratch, and those stiff white coats always gave me an uneasy feeling deep in my spirit. But with age, I found myself checking in more often than I cared to admit. First, my blood pressure would spike. Then my heart would act up. My joints would ache and remind me, sometimes with a cruel little laugh, that my youth had long since packed its bags and left town. This time, though, I hadn't come by ambulance. It started with what I thought were just regular complaints, dizzy spells, a heaviness in my limbs, trouble catching my breath at night. My primary care doctor listened to my chest, looked at my blood work, shook his head, and wrote out a referral to the University Medical Center. "You need to be admitted, Miss Vandra," he said gently. "We need to check the heart, the lungs, the whole works. This isn't a joke anymore."
I sighed but didn't argue. At my age, it's better to be safe than sorry. In the waiting room, I sat on a stiff plastic chair, clutching my purse on my lap, watching the double doors where doctors disappeared like ghosts. It was chaotic, someone being wheeled past on a gurney, another person shouting about waiting too long, and a woman weeping quietly in the corner, hugging a plastic bag of clothes like it held her whole world. "Vandra St. James," a voice called from the front desk. I stood, adjusted my silk scarf, and walked over. "Come on back," the nurse said briskly, taking my ID and insurance card. "Internal medicine unit. You requested a private room?" I nodded. "Private?" "Yes." That had been Drayden's idea, my second husband. "Ain't no need for you to be lying up in a room with strangers," he'd said when I got the referral. "We got the money, Vandra. We ain't cutting corners on your health." Money? It was my money, of course, the brownstone in the city, the lake house upstate, the 401k, the stocks, everything I'd earned and saved from my first life. Drayden had walked into a turnkey life, as I sometimes thought with a quiet smile, though I never said it out loud. You couldn't really say anything bad about him. He didn't drink to excess, didn't run the streets openly. He kept the house clean, was always polite, and brought flowers on Mother's Day and my birthday. The church ladies would whisper with a hint of jealousy, "Lord, you got lucky, Vandra." A second husband, and a younger one at that. All ours are resting in the cemetery, and here you are with a gentleman caller turned husband. I just waved them off. Lucky, unlucky, we just living. True, sometimes a sharp edge slipped into his words. Like when he'd say, "In this day and age, you can't get nowhere without capital. It's a blessing we have a cushion, Vandra. We can face old age in peace." He always said, "we." But I knew whose cushion it really was. Still, after 50, you just want peace in your home, no drama. And Drayden was there. He drove me to appointments, reminded me about my pills. For that alone, I was grateful in my own quiet way. The private room was small but decent, a hospital bed, a sleeper chair for guests, a flat-screen TV on the wall, and curtains with a generic floral pattern. It was quiet. I whispered a quick prayer, less talking, more resting. The first few days passed in a blur of routine, blood draws, for drips, the cuff squeezing my arm every few hours, and endless forms to sign. The doctor spoke little, smiling politely, but there was a guarded look in their eyes. I could feel they were discussing my case with a certain heaviness just outside my door. On the third day, they took me down for extensive imaging. Lying on the gurney in the hallway, I stared at the acoustic tiles on the ceiling for what felt like hours. Then came the machines, the cold sensors, the robotic voice. Breathe. Don't breathe. Don't move. When it was over, they wheeled me back. After lunch, my attending physician, Dr. Perrin, a tall man with tired eyes, walked in. "Miss Vandra," he said gently, "we need to have a conversation. And it's probably best if your husband is here for this." "Call him, then," I said calmly. "He promised to stop by this evening." That evening, Drayton arrived as usual, carrying a Whole Foods bag with fresh fruit and yogurt. "How's my girl doing?" he smiled, kissing my forehead. He saw the doctor and his face tightened just slightly, but he looked attentive, like a concerned husband should. Dr. Perrin motioned for him to sit. "The situation is complicated," he began. "The scans showed serious issues. There's a tumor, and it's already caused complications. We can attempt surgery, but the risk is extremely high." "How high?" Drayton asked, glancing at me. "The probability of the patient surviving the procedure and recovering, well, it's there, but it's slim." "And without surgery?" I asked softly. Dr. Perrin looked at me with sorrow in his eyes. "I'm afraid we'd be counting in days. 3, maybe 5, max." A heavy silence filled the room. 3 days. I'd heard phrases like that on TV dramas, but now those words were sitting right on my chest, heavy as stone. I looked at Drayton. He was staring at the floor, his brow furrowed. Then he looked up at the doctor. "So it's either risk it right now, and maybe she doesn't make it on the table, or we wait for the end?" "Roughly speaking, yes," the doctor nodded. Drayton sighed, running a hand down his face. "We need to talk privately. Is that okay?" "Of course," Dr. Perrin stood. "I'll check back later." When the door clicked shut, I turned to my husband. "Well, I tried to force a smile, another adventure in my old age, huh?" Drayton scooted closer, sat on the edge of the bed, and took my hand. "Don't you go thinking negative thoughts," he said softly. "Doctors always like to scare folks. Maybe they'll find something else, another way." He was saying the right things, but there was a strange frequency in his voice I hadn't tuned into before. A vibration I didn't recognize. "I ain't a child, Drayton," I said quietly. "I understand what he said." We talked a little longer, about calling my son Trayvon, warning my sister, weighing the surgery. It felt like a normal conversation, given the circumstances. Then Drayton checked his watch. "I'm going to head out, babe. You get some rest. I'll be back first thing in the morning." He leaned in, kissed my cheek, and left. I was alone. Outside the window, the city lights flickered on. A cart rattled down the hall. Someone groaned in pain nearby. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying not to think about 3 days, or survival rates. No matter how long you live, death is always inconvenient. A strange thought crossed my mind. I didn't notice when I drifted off. I woke up sensing a presence in the room. It was pitch black outside now. The fluorescent light above the sink cast a cold glow. Drayton was standing there. He'd come back. "You back already?" I asked, my voice thick with sleep. "I thought you went home." "I have time," he answered, looking at me with an expression I couldn't place. "Wanted to talk one more time, without the doctor." He sat in the chair and took my hand again. His fingers were warm, strong. I squinted at his face. He was smiling, but it wasn't his smile. It wasn't the smile I was used to. And suddenly, squeezing my hand, he whispered, almost affectionately. "Finally." I raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Finally," he repeated, leaning closer. "I've been waiting on this for so long. The house, the money, everything you got is going to be mine real soon. You just rest now. Don't struggle." He smiled openly, freely, like a man who just set down 100-pound sack of bricks. For a few seconds, I didn't process the meaning. The words floated like dust motes in the air, then they aligned. The house. The money. Yours becomes mine. An ice-cold wave washed over my entire body. Drayton didn't seem to notice my expression. Don't get me wrong, he continued smoothly, as if making an excuse. It's not that I want you to die. It's just, sooner or later, it was going to happen anyway. And now at least everything is clear. I'll get the paperwork sorted. Bury you with class. It'll be a beautiful service. Don't you worry. He said it in the same tone he used to ask if I wanted herbal tea, calm, measured. I stared at him in silence. My eyelids felt heavy. My lips dry as parchment. For a second, I thought this was a nightmare, a drug-induced hallucination. Any moment, I'd wake up, and Drayton would be the man I thought I knew. But he was sitting right there, alive, real, with that stranger's smile plastered on his face. You look a little out of it, he noted. Don't take it to heart, okay? That's just life. He patted my hand like I was an old buddy, and stood up. All right, I'm out. We'll tell the doctors tomorrow whatever they want to hear. You sleep. He left, closing the door gently. I lay there, staring at a spot on the wall. My thoughts had stopped. There was only a hollow emptiness. After some time, I heard a squeak at the door. A woman in navy blue scrubs appeared, holding a mop and bucket. Can I come in? She asked softly. Just need to hit the floor real quick. Come on, I whispered. She was maybe 40, with tired eyes but soft features. Quanah Rollins, she said, setting the bucket by the wall and starting to mop quietly. She'd clearly been nearby during Drayton's visit, but she pretended she hadn't seen or heard a thing. I watched her for a moment, then spoke sharply. Miss? She jumped slightly. Ma'am? What's your name? Quanah. Quanah Rollins. Quanah? I repeated slowly. Come here a minute, please. She wrung out the mop, left it in the bucket, and approached the bed. Yes, ma'am. I looked at her hands, dry, ashy from harsh chemicals. Looked into her eyes, where exhaustion had settled in permanently. How long you been working here? Going on 5 years, she said. Before that, I was doing housekeeping at a hotel, but the benefits are a little better here. Shifts work better for my schedule. Hard work, I bet. You get used to it? She shrugged. The sick folks, the grieving, the night shifts, a person can get used to anything. I sighed deep in my chest. Quanah, I said, if you do exactly what I ask, you can forget about this job forever. She frowned, wary. Excuse me? I ain't asking you to do nothing bad, I said quietly. I'm asking you to help me, and I'll pay you for it. Okay, she trailed off, confusion and caution swirling in her eyes. Nobody had ever said words like that to her. I don't even know what to say, she admitted. What kind of help? I turned my head to the door, made sure it was clear, then lowered my voice. Come closer. She leaned in. You probably heard what the doctor said, I began. I don't have much time. And I just heard what my husband really thinks about me. I recounted Drayton's words, stripping away the emotion, reporting it like reading a court transcript. You understand now? I asked. I do not want everything I worked for my whole life to go to a man who's standing there with a stopwatch, waiting for me to die. I have a son from my first marriage. He lives in Chicago. He's got his own family, his own struggles. I have a niece. I want them protected. And I want you to get something, for being my hands and feet right now. Quanah listened, eyes cast down. But what can I do? I'm just EDS. I got a mop, a bucket, and a key to the supply closet. You got access to the hallway, I said calmly. And you got the ability to call a mobile notary, without my husband knowing. I'm rewriting my will and my power of attorney. I need someone to call the notary service, meet them at the entrance, bring them up, and then keep their mouth shut. Don't run and tell Drayden. Can you do that? She thought about it. Doubt spun in her head. What if it's a scam? What if he finds out and I lose my job? But then another thought cut through. What if this is the only chance I ever get to break this cycle? There's mobile notaries that come to the hospital, she said quietly. I've seen them. Sometimes for folks who are passing. Good, I nodded. Only, we got to move fast. Doctors gave me 3 days, maybe less. Can you get the number tomorrow morning? I can, she nodded. But, are you sure you want to do this? Your husband. My husband wants my assets, I cut her off firmly. I already paid for my kindness with 20 years of marriage. That's enough. Now I get to decide who gets what. I paused. Quanah, you married? She shrugged. He left for a younger girl. Just me and my boy now. He's in community college. This job is all I got, and it barely pays the light bill. Then you understand, I said softly. Help me. I ain't asking you to break the law. Just help me use it right. Quanah straightened up. I'll find the notary, she said. I'll let you know by lunch. She picked up her mop, but her movements weren't mechanical anymore. Her mind was racing. The night was rough. I drifted into short naps, waking up gasping for air. Drayden's words looped in my head, finally. House. Money. All yours becomes mine. So that's who's been sleeping next to me all these years, I thought. Not a partner, a beneficiary. Morning came with needles, 4 bags, blood pressure cuffs. A nurse checked my vitals and said the doctor would come by later. By lunchtime, Quanah appeared in the doorway, hesitating. Come in, I nodded. Well, she started, I talked to the girls at the front desk. There's a signing agent who does hospital calls. Said they can be here after 3 o'clock. You need a witness or family, but the doctor can vouch you're of sound mind. Family will be here, I said calmly. I'm calling my son. He'll be here tomorrow, but we can prep the papers today. Quanah blinked. And your husband? My husband will find out later, I said dryly, through the probate lawyers, like it's supposed to be. I borrowed Quanah's charger, plugged in my phone, and dialed Trayvon. Trayvon, I said when I heard his voice. Situation is serious. I'm in the hospital. No, don't panic. I'm holding on, but I need.
And for my husband? Just the statutory elective share required by state law. No more. No less. Enough so he can't contest it in court. Everything legal. Everything by the book. The notary raised her eyebrows when she heard the cleaner's name, but she didn't say a word. Her job was to notarize, not to judge. You are certain you want to leave a significant sum to a non-relative? She clarified gently. I am certain, I said firmly. Sometimes you meet strangers who do more for you in an hour than family does in a lifetime. I signed the papers with a shaky hand. The doctor stepped in to witness my clarity. Quanah stood by the door the whole time, guarding the perimeter like a quiet sentinel. When the notary left, I beckoned Quanah over. There, I whispered. It's done. I watched him leave, and felt a strange serenity. Let him think I'm stupid. The important thing is, he can't touch a thing now. The next morning, Trayvon arrived, tall, broad-shouldered, bursting into the room with fear and relief. Mama, why didn't you tell me sooner? He exclaimed, hugging me gently. I would have been here yesterday. Didn't want to worry you, I smiled tiredly. Though I guess I worried you now anyway. We talked for a long time, about the diagnosis, the surgery, the legal documents. Trayvon was upset I'd handled it alone, but then he calmed down. Mama, whatever you want, that's how it's going to be, he said finally. I just want you to live. To hell with the rest of it. I'm going to try, I said. But no promises. Bodies get old, baby. Drayton didn't join us. He popped in for 2 minutes, said hello to his stepson, made a joke that didn't land, and disappeared, on business. By afternoon, the surgeon came by. Surgery scheduled for 6 a.m. Be ready. Minimal activity today. We'll take you down early. I felt at peace. Decision made. Papers signed. Son is here. Quanah was mopping the hall outside, occasionally giving me a subtle nod, I'm with you. The surgery was brutal. In the morning, they wheeled me away. I signed the consent form. The anesthesia took hold. For me, it passed in an instant, bright lights, cold steel, masked faces, voices, then darkness. When I came to, the first thing I felt was profound weakness. My eyelids like lead. My mouth like the Sahara. Miss Vandra, can you hear me? A nurse's voice floated. I managed a tiny nod. Surgery's over, she said. You made it. Doctors say you survived the hard part. I tried to speak, but only a croak came out. Don't talk yet, she soothed. Just breathe. You'll see your husband and son soon. Hours later, they moved me back to my room. My head spun. My body felt alien. But deep inside, there was a clear realization. I was alive. Not 3 days. Some amount of time. And that, some amount, was enough to look at life differently now. Trayvon was the first to see me. He sat by the bed, holding my hand, thanking the doctors, repeating, you did it, Mama. You're tough. Drayton came later. His face was tight. Well, congratulations, he said, sitting on the edge of the mattress. Pulled through. Real fighter. He cut himself off, swallowing the rest. I looked at him. His smile didn't fool me anymore. Yeah, I whispered. I pulled through. Going to have to wait a little longer, huh? He frowned, confused. What you mean by that? Nothing, I smiled faintly. Just talking to myself. Then, softly, I added, Vandra, I've been taking care of you. I've been here all these years. You were, I agreed. And thank you for that. But now, we walking different paths. I ain't kicking you out the house, Drayton. You live. But don't you hold your breath waiting for my funeral like it's a holiday. It ain't happening. He wanted to say something, but the words stuck in his throat. He turned and walked out, shoulders slumped that I didn't get discharged quickly. Rehab took weeks. I lost weight, got weak, then slowly built my strength back up. First standing with help, then walking the corridor, gripping the handrail. Drayton kept visiting, but not every day. First, he used work as an excuse. Then he started complaining quietly, hard being alone. House is empty. Gas money adding up. He was still hoping the situation might tilt back in his favor, hoping maybe I'd survive the surgery but fade away soon, so he could fix the documents. But the documents were already filed in the county clerk's system. Life, no matter how hard, has a way of putting things in their place. Maybe not immediately. Maybe through pain and betrayal. But it happens. I remembered that night in the room, Drayton's satisfied grin, and Quanah's words, a person can get used to anything. People get used to cruelty if they're the ones dishing it out. But you can never get used to kindness. That always feels like a surprise. I felt truly peaceful. I didn't know how much time lay ahead on this strange, difficult road. But I knew one thing for sure. That time belonged to me now, not to someone else's calculations. And that, was the greatest gift of all.